Welcome to Earth's Mightiest Weirdos, ladies and gentlemen. This is our first episode of Earth's Mightiest Weirdos, a rebrand from Marvel Monday. Marc Adams unable to join us this evening. He is still very much a weirdo, but he's just unable to join us this evening. So in his stead, we've got Duane up there in the top right corner. How you doing tonight, Duane?
I'm doing great. I didn't know if I should pose, kind of give my mark, look off into the sky there.
Yeah. We told Marc,
America style.
Yeah, Captain America always looks on the poster like a bird just stole his hot dog. Yeah, so Ethan down there in the bottom corner, the wolf of Main Street himself. How you doing, Ethan?
I'm very well. Thank you, as always, for having me. It's good to be here.
Good. And, of course, as always, we got Diz Life Marc Valentine down there. How you doing, Marc?
I'm good. I'm missing the other Marc. I'm getting used to Marky Mark and Marc.
Yeah, it's going to be easier for me to remember that. That'll work out well. If you are showing up on the screen as Facebook user, go ahead and click the link in the comments for the video up above you, just to tell Facebook or tell StreamYard that you have permission to share your name so we know who we're talking to. But thank you. And Jim's joining us saying go Avalanche.
Go
Absolutely.
Avs.
Go Avs, go. So none of those Bruins junk, all that kind of stuff. So
come on.
All right, perfect. So I think it was it your wife, Ethan, that showed up as the Facebook user again?
Yeah.
I mean,
Bryan,
it usually is.
Do you want to talk about the rebrand quick? How we got weird? Or
go ahead. I'll jump in when I feel.
Yeah, Marvel Monday was there was the fake Marc here said is about the real Marc. So Marvel Monday was a lot of fun, but the schedule changed for some of us here on the panel, and instead of trying to disband the Avengers or find a way around it, we all sat down and said, "Hey guys, if Monday is not a night that's going to be convenient for everyone, let's just rebrand the podcast." Obviously, the alliteration will have to change. So we said, do we want to have another alliteration, or do we just want to rename this thing so that it can become portable? And if some days we have to have it on Tuesday or Wednesday, that we can move it from where we need to go. And we're trying really hard to be Earth's mightiest heroes. It just never worked out with this crew. So the best you get from us is just weird. That's it. So we're here temporarily on Sunday. We have not settled on a permanent home. A lot of us are talking about what that's going to be. Right now, it's looking as if it's going to be on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. But the big news with this is as well, we've been having so much fun that you can start to look for a audio-only version of this to hit Anchor very soon. And that we're going to have an RSS feed. So if we are broadcasting of a night that does not work for you in terms of the live stream, that we're going to have an audio only version for you too, so that you can take some Marvel with you during your commute during the week. And we're really excited. So I was psyched about the rebrand. Thank you to Justin, who's here, who redid our theme music. Justin, knocked it out of the park for our theme music. And we're very lucky to have his talents on this as well. But we're excited. I'm really excited that, even though some things changed around for many of us in terms of life, we weren't ready to give up the fun.
Yeah, and Frankie said he's a weirdo as well. We hope you all are weirdos enough to at least hang out. You're weird enough to listen to us talk in the first place, so we do appreciate that. Like Marc said, the podcast will hit Anchor soon. Most of you don't know what Anchor is. That is fine. That just means there's going to be a podcast version wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anything like that. But always be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to those podcasts. But we're not going to drag you out for very long until we get that set night of when we are going to be doing this. As I said last week, Monday night worked really, really well. I will fully take the blame for Monday night not working right now. But there's some things in the works where I can hopefully get us back to Monday night, but we're not going to drag you guys out for very long. We're going to be able to make that decision here very, very soon. So, but gentlemen, let's get into it. It's a Sunday night. Everybody's got work tomorrow, except for the kids on spring break. Enjoy spring break, everybody. But we're going to start with Duane there in the top right corner. Duane, my dad just asked if it was this same Duane who's of the New England Patriots fame in the comments usually. And yes, that is the same Duane. So, Duane, you have caught this show I think you said 4 times, right? So you're almost catching up with me. I'm at 6.
Yeah.
But WandaVision didn't keep you coming back 4 times in its opening weekend. What did this for you?
Well, I think WandaVision kind of warmed me up to making sure I was catching all the information. But I just I loved it. It was, to me, it was kind of your classic Marvel kind of episode. It started right out, just bang. You're going right from the second it opens. It's wide open right away. And I love that. Just again, the classic Marvel kind of feel. I like the characters quite a bit. I like Sam. We talked about, I like Rhodes. I like Bucky, so I'm really interested to see where everything goes. And I just enjoyed it. And I watched it once myself before everybody was awake. Then I watched it with my wife. Then I watched it with my daughter. Then I watched it with my son. So I had to catch up. So
now Lori gave you permission to watch it without her, right? You didn't just betray some of your own confidence.
No, she knew. I was up early watching. So
all right, cool. Yeah, when you talk about it's the same old Marvel, that's an unbelievable sentence, because the budget that this show has really showed up on the screen in the first 10 minutes of this episode. How about you, Ethan? What did you think of it?
I definitely enjoyed it. I sort of took this in the same way that I took in WandaVision. I just tried to look at it from a pure, like, do I want to enjoy this standpoint? Is it good enough to enjoy? And is there a story there that I'm going to be able to follow? And for the most part, I think they answered a lot of those questions pretty quickly. I love that there's a little bit more action right out of the gate with this particular show. I loved some of the dialogue that was occurring, between Rhodes and Sam. And then you have, just conversations that sort of happen within this that show that there's real life going on too. We see that at the bank, things of that nature, which I know we'll get into, but there's real life going on. And that, I think, was a cool element to this that you didn't necessarily get that from WandaVision. And I like that they tied that into this particular show. So.
Yeah, when you talk about life going on, it's really interesting that we're getting this we're not out of the pandemic yet, but getting post-pandemic of kind of dealing with what the world has been. I've referred to the quarantine as the blip many times in my life, and I think it's eventually going to stick. But let us know in the comments what you guys thought of the show as well, kind of on a scale of 1 to 10 kind of deal. We'd love to know what you hear as well. Marc, what did you think of it?
So Duane kind of took the words right out of my mouth. Where for Marvel fans and Marvel aficionados, the opening sequence was, I think, what most people have come to love and appreciate about the MCU, are the action sequences, the budget. You could see the budget and the effort was really put into that opening sequence. I mean, dare I would say it was one of my favorite action sequences of all the MCU thus far. Like, the way it was shot, it was gorgeous. We joked before we came on air that I said, I laughed and said maybe they blew the budget for the entire season in just that shot. But it was really cool and exciting because that kind of stuff then was balanced out with the real heartfelt scenes between, the Falcon and his sister, and like Sebastian Stan for the win. I decided after this, I was always very big on Bucky Barnes / the Winter Soldier. Like, that to me was very compelling. I am team Bucky Barnes / Winter Soldier. I don't care what you call him at this point. Like, I forgive but his moment that we'll get into with the psychiatrist, the scene work that he did as an actor. I'm gonna do this right now, and I'm sorry it's not an appropriate venue, but can we please get him as Luke Skywalker? Like, let's start that campaign right now. If you're in the comments and you want him as Luke, please blow this up. Like, let's take over it right now.
No. I don't need that. I don't need that part of Luke's life filled in for me right now. I want to continue with other stuff. Give me Ahsoka before I get Luke, and we're getting that. So,
well, can we have both of them? Will
no.
you give me? Come on.
No. Justin said, sorry, he's late to the party. Hey, we're glad you're here to the party at all. But let's get into it, guys. So the very first thing, we've got Batroc. Batroc is our first villain, and we've seen Batroc in the MCU before. And without coming off too, or Ethan, do you remember Batroc from Captain America: The Winter Soldier? He's portrayed by George St. Pierre.
Yeah.
If you don't remember him, that's fine. Most people aren't going to.
He hijacked the boat.
He hijacked. Yeah, I was gonna say. I think he hijacked the boat. I sort of remember him.
Okay.
It had been a while since I'd seen The Winter Soldier, so I remembered him. I didn't necessarily remember all that sort of encompassed within him. So no, I recognized him. If that was sort of the ultimate question there, but
yeah. David said these shows attention to an expansion of the character and emotion is what's going to set him apart. He's absolutely
spot
correct.
On. Spot on.
So yes, you've absolutely got it, Ethan. He hijacked the Lumerian Star. Batroc he's a comic book villain. He's a little bit more laughable in the comic books. He's got a purple and yellow outfit that kind of stands out for all the wrong reasons, but he does that purple and yellow this time around. Looks a lot better, but he is on the Lumerian Star ship. Robert Redford calls him a mercenary for hire. So he's not necessarily Hydra. He's not any of these things. He is now been hired basically by LAF. We don't know what LAF stands for. So we're still not there. But moving on to our next prompt there, James, we've got LAF and the Falcon. Just this entire opening sequence and how incredible it was. Go ahead, Marc.
This was one of my favorite scenes in all the MCU. I tend to like the action of Captain America. I like how it's very grounded. I like that it gets really gritty and it's a lot of fisticuffs. There's a lot of acrobatics about it. So they took a lot of the stuff that I love from Winter Soldier and First Avenger, even Civil War, and you could see that style has kind of continued, but then adding the aerial sequence to it. And Red Wing was like seeing Red Wing in action was really cool. We haven't seen him all that much. So seeing Red Wing and the two of them and the AI working in tandem was amazing. I love him. You said the sequence where he cuts out the fuselage of the plane and then just enters into the plane and starts wreaking havoc was awesome. It's nice to know that autopilot will kick on if your pilot gets shot in the head, which was another thing that
they could have used that in The Mandalorian in the third episode this season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. But that whole sequence was pretty epic. And then the fact that we were talking about that Batroc survives, I like where they're setting this up, that you have mercenaries and you have terrorist organizations that are starting to take advantage of the world of the blip and now post blip. I like how different this is from WandaVision. I loved WandaVision. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking it, but I like the style that this from the outset, this show was like, we're not going to take 2 episodes to immerse you in and world build. We're just going to punch you right in the face with the action that we know that you've come to love and appreciate from these heroes. So that opening sequence, I'm going to say, I know it's early, one of my favorites ever. I've watched it. I've watched that probably 8 times already. Not even the whole episode, but just that sequence like 8 times.
Wow. My dad's in the comments telling you all about how the autopilot and stuff works. My dad is a private pilot, so he wants the wings and he knows how all the autopilot stuff works. Frankie says, "What is LAF?" LAF is simply the people that hijacked that airplane. Other than that, we genuinely don't know. They probably have some sort of relation to the Flag Smashers that we meet later on in the episode, but we don't know that for sure either. We don't know what LAF stands for. We really don't know other than Batroc's involvement, and they were trying to take that Air Force commander. Duane, what did you think of this opening sequence?
Yeah, just like Marc said, the action I thought was great. I actually really liked the hand-to-hand combat kind of stuff, that kind of the fight scenes, your fisticuffs kind of things, and the kickboxing, the wrestling kind of moves. I enjoyed that. Of course, all the aerial stuff was amazing. I love how, Batroc is, he jumps out of the plane, then he flies into the helicopter and, he's just like, hey, what's up? He's like total cool guy, no big deal. I just jumped out of a plane. Now I'm in a helicopter. I love that. I think the excitement from the Falcon in the air and Torres on the ground, I also thought was really cool because Torres was kind of giving him all the information. Hey, we're getting close. You got to make a decision. We got to stop.
Yeah.
You got to get out. And he was like, I found another way. That whole part, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was cool.
It was interesting to see too, just as a point of Sam is following orders from the U.S. government. He's not going rogue. So he's not acting as an Avenger in as much as he's acting as an agent of the United States, which was really interesting to see, because I was curious to see if he was going to hold steady on that order.
See, I'm not totally sure. I think you might also have the Sokovia Accords in play a little bit. He obviously is working with the U.S. military, no question. But I think Libya probably isn't as nice from a Sokovia Accord standpoint for superheroes as Tunisia is as well. Because the military tells Sam to be subtle, and then it's anything but subtle. But nobody seems to have a problem in Tunisia at that point. And you see the Tunisian civilians and their appreciation for the Avengers. That man says, "Hey, you brought my wife back to me. Thank you." And then Sam speaks Arabic and all that kind of stuff. But I'm completely with you guys. Mark, you talked about how this honestly makes me. We'll get there in just a second, James. You're good. This makes me appreciate WandaVision just that much more with how different it was. Yeah. And then it's nice to go back into what this new show is going to be. I'm really, really excited. But moving on, Frankie just brought it up in the comments as well. Says, I like Torres. He's a character from the comics that he didn't know about. So for those of you that don't know, and most of you guys, and I was talking to Duane about this earlier today, probably didn't, but Torres, they only named him Torres, but in the credits, his full name is there. It's Joaquin Torres. And he is the Falcon when Sam Wilson becomes Captain America. So I would venture to say that is the groundwork that they're laying. And he's a believer he says he doesn't believe it, but he's a believer that Steve Rogers is living on the moon in a base, just kind of overlooking everything. So even though Steve is in the in memoriam of Spider-Man Far From Home, it seems like the world doesn't fully believe that Steve Rogers is officially gone. So that's pretty interesting to see that. And then, like I said earlier, we see that man in Tunisia just recognize Sam and thank him for bringing his wife back. And Sam seems genuinely happy to help. But we're seeing a lot from Sam here we didn't know that he had. I mean, he's fixing Red Wing. He's got a lot more capability than we've ever seen before. Was there anything in this particular scene that stood out to anybody?
I like him doing the work on the technology. I like the way, I said this to my friend Mike, who lives out in California. I feel like while Anthony Mackie and the Falcon has had moments in previous films, I feel like he hasn't really been that well developed. I felt that way about Wanda too. That was the nice thing I liked about WandaVision, was I felt like we got a more robust character from her. So I'm liking the devotion to him and the development of him, that we're starting to see that he's more than just the pilot, and he's more than just a competent aerial veteran, that he's got a lot to him, that he's a very well-rounded person that's kind of dabbling in technology, that he's smart. He's always been really likable, but this episode I called Mike in California. I said, hey, I'm becoming really high on him now. I always liked Anthony Mackie, but I felt like he didn't get a lot to do in previous episodes and whatnot, and previous films. He had one-liners, or he would show up and you'd cheer for him. But I feel like this is really now going to make me care about him as a character. So I'm psyched. So I was all in.
He's a great character. Ethan, it looked like you had something.
Yeah, I the fact that he could speak a couple different languages, like that to me was like a big draw. Like I was like, oh wow, like that's an interesting thing that I didn't know about this character. That I wonder if that'll play into something later on. If his ability to communicate, widespread will play to his favor. But no, I think and Mark, you said it really well. It's just he's a character that you cheered for. He's a character that you sort of knew was going to be there, but you didn't necessarily get like his story. You didn't get to know a whole lot about him. So it is a really cool introduction to a character that you've always been cheering for. So I agree between Mark and Mike. That was a really cool take for sure.
Yeah, he really was a secondary character. I mean,
right.
And in Winter Soldier, he was there, but he didn't get flushed out as say as much as Black Widow did. Like Black Widow, that was a real big movie for her. That there was a lot of character development for Black Widow in that film. He was introduced in it. There was a lot of heartfelt stuff of him running around in Washington and the On Your Left.
Mhm.
He became a fan favorite, but by the end of that movie, he still was kind of a background character. He wasn't really up front.
And that's why some people were a little bit, oh, he got the shield. Like, that's weird. Like, he hasn't spent a lot of time, and we're learning why he was worthy of it and why Bucky more so probably wasn't. Patrick says Anthony Mackie is so underrated. Loved him in Adjustment Bureau. I've not seen Adjustment Bureau, but Anthony Mackie, he's a powerhouse in this show specifically already. And we get probably his best performance in the next scene. James, if you can move us to the next one, he gives up the shield. You just couldn't back one, please, James. But Sam gives up the shield. Oh, I think we're missing one, but we'll talk about Sam giving up the shield here right now, where he says, we need new heroes, one suited for the times that we're in. Symbols are nothing without the men and women that give them meaning. And this thing, when he holds up the shield, he says, I don't know if there's ever been a greater symbol, but it's more about the man who propped it up, and he's gone. So Sam doesn't feel worthy of holding the shield. He said at the end of Endgame, it feels like someone else's.
Yeah.
But I think he gave up. Matt in the comments says, why did he give up the shield? Do you think he's convinced by somebody or just convinced himself to do it? I think it's a little bit of both. I think his self-doubt definitely took over, but I think that really, let's call him Hayward of a senator or whatever he is, really convinced Sam, because he shook his hand, said you did the right thing by giving up the shield, and it's the same senator that announces the new Captain America at the end of this. At the end, Duane, what did you think of Sam giving up the shield in this scene?
Well, just to be real honest, I didn't like it. I didn't like him giving up the shield. I agree 100% that I think it was a combination of him not feeling worthy to carry the shield, and then also having the politicians in his ear. Hey, we need that. We need, go ahead and give us that shield back. You don't need it. That kind of thing. And so it almost saddened me a little bit, that section of it when he's giving that up. I was like, and then how Rhodes kind of asked him, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Why didn't you take, he says, I think he says, why didn't you take the mantle? And then he gives the, the answer from just like what he said in Endgame. So, obviously I had those emotions right away, and I was just like, inside you're screaming almost at the TV, don't give that up. That's the wrong situation or the wrong thing to do. But, hopefully.
So
we know
when I see that scene, though, I think back to the first Avenger when Stanley Tucci's character is talking to Chris Evans about the qualities that he looked for in the candidates for the Super Serum Project. And, the fact that they wanted to pick a guy that was essentially wasn't looking for the fight. Mm-hmm. And I think that to me, that's how that scene struck with me, is that because he doesn't think he's worthy, because he's not the guy that's looking for the fight, he'll fight the good fight when he's called upon. He's a man of service. And that's what I think Chris Evans was. He didn't want to fight. He would fight to the end, but he had a good heart. To me, that was a moment that you realize the reason he should have that shield is because he doesn't crave that power or covet that power. And I think that's going to be a big part of his character moving forward.
Ethan, what did you think of having Colonel James Rhodes there in the audience and the conversation they had?
I thought it was pretty cool. I didn't necessarily expect to see a big name like that within this series even, but to see him within the first episode, I sort of took their conversation like, hey, I'll see you around, or whatever the exchange was, as a nod to, and I know Matt just asked, I saw that as a nod to, okay, maybe he'll be around again. Mm-hmm. At what form or capacity, I'm not really too sure, but I did sort of get the feeling that he'd be around again. And I don't want to go down like all these little rabbit holes that we did with WandaVision, but it just seemed as though, just based off of the conversation, that there could be something else there, certainly. So
that's because he's a Skrull.
Oh,
no,
not do not do that.
No, we're not going there.
That is, I'm just pushing buttons.
I think Rhodes will come back in the show. I don't know if War Machine will make a full appearance. I do think Rhodes will come back. He had already kind of become Sam's mentor. They're good
Right.
buddies. I mean, when Sam
Yep.
is snapped away at the end of Infinity War, like Rhodes is looking for him. Like they've got a respect there. But Rhodes seems to know what this would have meant. And this show is going to talk a lot about it. My dad asked, did he not think someone else would get it? I don't think he did. I think he's not surprised at the end when it happens, but at the same time, I think Rhodes is definitely hinting at it would have been great for you to do it. And part of that is because you are a black man and you would be Captain America. This show is going to be getting into that deep.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I wondered if it had anything to do with that cultural respect between these two people, and if it was his way of saying, "Hey, like, this is your chance, this is your opportunity," and the self-doubt that sort of comes along with that, and the fear and everything else. So I'm sort of happy you said that, because I definitely that undertone was certainly there for sure.
I think from a storytelling standpoint too, I think as an audience, everyone will embrace him as Captain America more if he earns it. You know, that I think that struggle is going to be such an important part, which will make us root for him in the end. That it's going to be coming from him not wanting it to embracing it and finding his way and finding a way to go from being the Falcon to being Captain America. I think is what in the end, I think that's what this is going to be about. You know, there's going to be other stuff, but I think the ultimate resolution of this is going to be Sam realizing that, he started and he was not worthy, but he has been worthy all along, and that he's going to fight for the shield. He's going to want the shield. I think that's going to be that'll be the payoff for us in the end.
I thought this show was going to be about the struggle between Sam wanting to be Captain America and the government wanting somebody else, but it's Sam realizing he needs to be Captain America. It's going to be really interesting. Anthony just brought up in the comments about the Avengers salary. We're going to get to that later on when we talk about the loan officer. But at risk of spending too much time on everything, we'll move on to our next prompt. So Dr. Rayner and Bucky's therapy session. It starts with seeing Bucky's his nightmare. He kills that guy who if he had just gotten into his room 30 seconds earlier, he would still be alive. Mr. Nakajima's son. That was rough. Like, I put that together before the show officially told you when they showed the shrine that he had in his apartment, but that was rough. But Bucky's got 3 rules. Rule number 1 is you can't do anything illegal. Hijacking somebody's car, I mean, probably illegal. Rule 2, nobody gets hurt, and she calls it a big one. Then he asks, why isn't that just rule number 1 then? But he takes his vibranium arm and he knocks that other guy out. So he's doing what he needs to do to make amends. And the rule number 3 is the big one. He needs to demonstrate in his new way of life. He needs to state that I am no longer the Winter Soldier. I am James Bucky Barnes, and it always comes with that forced smile that he's got going on there. And you're part of my efforts to make amends. And that's what he's doing with this person that he gets arrested. That's what he's doing with Mr. Nakajima. Like, Bucky is a haunted man. You could see in his notes that Zemo is on his list to make amends with, which is very interesting because he never did anything Zemo. So how they're going to build out this story from Civil War into this show is going to be really, really interesting. He's got to respond to Sam's texts. Like, it's cool that Sam is reaching out, that Sam is doing that, but Bucky's just closing everybody off. But the camera angles in this scene made you really uncomfortable. Like, this scene did everything that it was supposed to do. Mark, what did you think of this therapy session?
It reminded me, I bookended this with the Captain America therapy sessions in Endgame, where they were talking about the trauma. Yeah. The one part that I just thought was so fascinating was him kind of recounting his life and saying, I've gone from one fight to another, and I want quiet. And then the therapist says, like, no, that's not the BS.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's not the route to go. Like, as a person who's pretty messed up,
you're a terrible shrink.
Yeah, that quiet's going to be worse for you than anything else. Like, this is the route. And so I had that same thought. I'm like, man, like, is she a terrible therapist, or does she have an agenda of her own? Because clearly she's working for someone in DOD. She's working for someone with her 3-step program, that this isn't him just wandering in and saying, hey, listen, I would like to contract a therapist on my own. There's an element to this therapy that was forced upon him or suggested by someone. So I'm wondering if she has an agenda of her own to say, like, no, we don't want peaceful Bucky. We want you to still be an agent and an asset. We just want you to be an asset for us.
Is she Mephisto? Is that what you're getting at?
That's it. That's it. Drop it.
Totally.
I'm going to go on TikTok and I'm going to drop that.
Well, you might as well drop in that his very first, and Anthony is here watching. Anthony's the one that pointed this out to me, that the very first guess that Bucky had that we heard in Battleship was F4, Fantastic Four. So, Duane, what did you think of this entire therapy session?
I found it interesting, very interesting. And actually kind of backing up even into the nightmare. One of the things that struck me right away was that he was sleeping on the floor.
I know, right? Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, he's sleeping on the hard floor, not on the bed, kind of more like, I guess, probably what he's used to. But then the therapy session, as they're kind of going back and forth, and he's not answering the questions the way she wants to hear. And then she starts with a notebook and he's like, that's passive aggressive. He was like, you're terrible, when they're going back. And I liked the banter of that. Like Marc said, though, I very much feel like she has an agenda. But I mean, even in one part of that scene, if I'm not mistaken, she's like, this counseling is part of your, redemption, part of your, your program. Yeah, so it's something he has to do. Yeah, your pardon. That's what it was. I'm sorry, the word. But so it's something he's being forced to do. But there was just a lot there. I mean, you could kind of go 1,000 different ways during that scene, but that scene was powerful, and I think a big part of what's going to go forward there.
Yeah, I you guys are making a leap that I'm not at all willing to say. When you say she has an agenda, you very well could mean that in the nicest way possible. When I hear she has an agenda, that she's trying to basically brainwash him to then working for the government or something like that. I don't think it's, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's just kind of where my mind went. So I'm glad to hear you guys aren't thinking that.
No, I'm not really there. I just think she's trying to lead him in, whether it's even just in the purest sense to back to health, but I think there's definitely a leading there somewhere, Yeah.
Ethan, how about this scene for you?
I like the exchanges. I sort of digged the nightmare scene. I thought it was really cool to sort of see again, just, Bucky's real abilities. And although not used in the best way, it was awing to see him, just how strong he is, just how quick he is, how quick he was able to maneuver around the enemies. I thought that was really interesting, really cool. And obviously, you have the tie-in with the son and the father. And I had to ask you, I was like, wait a second, how does this guy and him, like, how are they? So it's that aspect of it was interesting as well. But between the therapists, I didn't necessarily pick up on an agenda per se, but I did find it really interesting. They're sort of banter back and forth. You can tell they have a relationship. You can tell that they have some history, because the moment she picked up that notepad, the moment she clicked her pen, he was like, whoa, like, come on, again, like, cut it out. Like, she
can match his snark too, which not everybody can do. So, but it became very, very clear very early on in this show why Sam got the shield and Bucky didn't. Yeah. Bucky he's not mentally there. Moving on to the next one there, I think we're going to talk about Mr. Nakajima and Bucky's lunch date. Yeah. Mr. Nakajima landed a date for Bucky. I think he really liked that. David says, I like that she has military experience and knows how to cut through Bucky's avoidance of the issues. Absolutely. That was cool. She knows PTSD all on her own. Like Duane catching that he was sleeping on the floor was a big deal. But Mr. Nakajima, and he wasn't having a good day. Bucky gets him out to lunch. He looks happier. Marc wants me to click a pen as well. So just getting him to lunch, but then him falling back into just how sad missing his son. And you start, this is when I put together, oh no, like this is exactly who that character was. And then they show it later on, but Mr. Nakajima, just Bucky's really, really trying to make these amends, and he's doing it literally one person at a time. Next one, please, James. So we got Uncle Sam. Sam goes to visit his family. They have a shrimp fishing boat down in Louisiana. Marc, what did you think of this entire sequence?
I don't know. I really didn't think much of the scene.
Okay.
It just added some personal touches. But when you just said shrimp and boat, it took me to Forrest Gump. I didn't think until you said it. Until you said the shrimp and boat. Then my mind just went to
shrimp burger.
Again, I didn't think much of it.
Salad, shrimp burger.
Sorry, Marc.
I didn't think. No, it's okay. Go ahead. I didn't think much of it. Again, it was just really nice to get a lot more of his personal side.
Yep.
To see the sequence with him and his sister, and then we'll talk about the loan officer and whatnot. It was great to see. It's peeling back the curtain to getting to see life during the blip, the aftermath of the blip on a very personal and one-on-one level.
She's a powerhouse. I'm really excited to see more of and I apologize, I don't know that actress's name off the top of my head, but I think she's got a lot coming. She's gonna be able to. I'm not saying she's turning into a superhero or anything like that. But just seeing Sam, kind of his upbringing, kind of who he is really, really cool. Next one, please, James. I think the shrimp boat was a hint at Sam is gonna lose his legs. Glad he can fly. Jeez, James, I appreciate that. So Bucky lands that wonderful date. I am glad that Bucky stopped that arm from the cat. It was the one thing that I could notice in the entire scene. But Bucky saying he's 106, like he's trying to be comfortable with the man that he is. He brings her flowers, and she said, man, Marc, why are you in the comments and not bringing these hot takes on the show? Mr. Nakajima and Bucky broke my heart more than Yondu's death. He says he's 106. He doesn't know how to be comfortable in his own skin, because Bucky in the first Avenger, very, very comfortable with women. He knew how to talk to women more than one at a time. But just this scene, he just doesn't know. I mean, I'm glad he knows how to play Battleship, but he brings the flower to her. She says if that isn't the most adorably old-fashioned thing she's ever seen. So, does anybody have anything on Bucky's date with Leah?
Yeah, well, absolutely. From a style choice, it was nice to see his choice of gloves. I would like to point out that that glove style choice was also great on Luke Skywalker. That it's nice to see that he's going to be able to rock the glove on his hand, on the robotic hand as well. So I'd like to point out the cybernetic arm for both of them. Again, hashtag Sebastian Stan as Luke Skywalker. Thank you.
Next one, please. Lori in the comments says, I think the therapist answers to someone that Bucky's not totally trusting of. Just my opinion. I will be fully willing to admit that I'm wrong here, but I trust her a little bit too much. Maybe that's my problem. So getting back into the show, the Wilsons, and they go visit the loan officer. The loan officer says, Sam says, I know we qualify for an SBA loan. Yeah, you did under these old terms. And they come right out to it and say, everything seems to get tight around us before it gets tight around everything else. This entire show is venturing into what people may refer to as political, whatever. This show is very much venturing into race and everything. And that's going to mean a lot when we talk about the end of the episode. But so let's talk about what Anthony brought up first. The loan officer is wondering what we're all like. How did these guys make a salary? Like Stark should have been bankrolling the whole thing, and then the loan officer throws in my condolences, like he's actually feeling bad. But Sam, I love Sam kind of putting on a show, just as being the hey, did you play football at LSU? Like no, and then he puts on the wings. Like Duane, what did you think of this entire interaction?
Yeah, I definitely thought. it was interesting. I picked up right away, like you said, kind of whether it was kind of some political overtones or just some of that thing. But I thought the interesting thing was, again, that we're seeing life after the blip and the effects of that, because his sister talks about, hey, you don't know what I've been through the last 5 years. You don't know what I had to do to keep this going, and she's the whole time telling him, this is not going to work. Why are we doing this? She's trying to get him not to do it. Well, he doesn't realize how the climate's changed.
And her husband was not blipped away. Her husband died somehow. We don't understand that whole story either. Ethan, what did you think of this?
Yeah, it was just really disappointing that, here you have this family who had a shrimping boat company in this little area for many years, and it was just sad to see that they couldn't do anything to work with them. And it's unfortunate that over the course of 5 years, you're put into situations where you do have to take out more loans and more money to try to keep things afloat. And, we sort of talked about it a little bit earlier, but it had a very sort of pandemic feel to it, sort of like what we've been going through, as well as, what these people went through with the blip and coming back and trying to figure out life and things of that nature. Hi, Katie. Good to see you. But definitely, it's just too bad. It just really is too bad.
Yeah.
So isn't he asked for a selfie? He gets the first selfie, but then he asks for the second one. He's like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah. Like you can't do anything.
He wanted the full
people.
wing selfie.
Right.
So we talked earlier in the episode that Torres said that some people preferred Life Without Borders, everything that was kind of going on with the blip. In Endgame, we very much established a world that had basically fallen apart. So it's interesting to hear this loan officer talk about banks and even their existence within the last 5 years. I thought that was kind of interesting. But I can see kind of where they're coming from. All of a sudden you've established this new world and now you've got double the people in it again. And nobody seems to give Sam all the credit for everything he did to bring it back. Mark, anything that stood out to you here?
Listen, man, I was just going to say for the loan underwriters, they're the real heroes here. Like that's a lot of math when you lose half the world's population and the financial systems collapse. And then within, a 2-month period, you got to underwrite all these new loans. They're the real heroes.
Not this guy. All right, moving on to our next one. But this is where wow. We're moving on to our next one. We're learning right here that this show is going to venture into places that isn't going to make everybody comfortable. I mean, and I know I'm not super qualified to break this down at every level, so we're going to absolutely do our best. So we hope everybody stays with us, and but we're absolutely gonna touch on stuff, and we're just gonna simply put facts out there as how the show presents them. So, but Torres, he encounters the Flag Smashers. Torres is the worst undercover cop ever. I mean, he just is the most obvious undercover guy out there. But this Danny Ramirez is this actor's name. Marvel seemed to get him before he's about to blow up because he's going to be in the new Top Gun movie. If they locked him up to be the new Falcon, he could be around for a while. He's kind of got that happy-go-lucky look to him, but I think that's more the character than it is the actor. So I'm really excited to see kind of his future. Gets the living crap beat out of him. But that's our first introduction to the Flag Smashers. We see Erin Kellyman, who is the actress that was in Solo. She played Enfys Nest in Solo, A Star Wars Story. She was the one with the mask and her big red hair poking out there. We're going to see she's one of the Flag Smashers. But Ethan, is there anything about the Flag Smashers or just their existence that you found interesting?
Not necessarily. I mean, we've sort of learned a lot about the different organizations that were happy with Blip, happy with the circumstances that came after Thanos snapped. So I find it interesting that they're sort of expanding that and giving us more of a picture, because obviously some of them are still around, and I think at one point they were also talking about like drug lords and things of that nature. So like things like bad things are still going on. And it's pretty cool that there's people still that can fight that, and I mean it just provides for a good story, certainly.
The Flag Smashers are definitely coordinated. They are. This story does take place 6 months after Endgame, so 2 months before Spider-Man: Far From Home, but about 5 months after WandaVision. So just so everybody has a timeline there, but they're definitely coordinated. We don't know who the big guy who seems to have some sort of super soldier serum or something.
Yep. That's what I was going.
I was
hope
just getting
the
ready
big
to ask
guy-
that question.
Yeah, I hope the big guy isn't John Walker, but I suppose it's possible. John Walker is the new Captain America, by the way. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I don't think it's going to be that quote unquote predictable, but he seems to have some sort of super soldier serum. Duane, what did you think of the Flag Smashers, this whole scene?
Yeah, actually, what you just brought up was kind of one of the questions I had, right away was that guy seemed to have like supernatural power. I mean, takes Torres completely over his head,
After WandaVision, James, after WandaVision.
and then
not Agatha.
completely body slams him, kicks him in the head, immediately his head's busted open. It's just that. So that right away, I was like, okay, and I didn't even think about the serum, but how does he have that power was really the thing that jumped out at me in that scene.
I find it interesting, like if Sam really were working in tandem with the U.S. military, he would not have told Torres to keep this just between the two of us. I think Sam would have run it up the flagpole. So I think that's probably going to come back and bite Sam in some form or fashion, saying you claim to be Captain America and you don't have like our best interests at heart or anything like that. But Marc, anything about Torres and the Flag Smashers?
So when I see that display of strength from the bad guy, my mind automatically goes to something like with our heroes. I mean, Bucky is cybernetically enhanced, because of the cybernetics, he has like extreme strength, but like Sam is very much like he's just a normal guy. So I'm curious to see if through this there is something that comes about him getting some kind of super strength or serum. When I saw that, I thought, is there a serum still in play? Is there some kind of enhancement that's still in play that Sam is going to come into contact with throughout the course of the show that's going to enhance him to make him a super? Honestly, that was the only thing I took away from this scene, because I'm thinking that, when he transitions from being the Falcon to being Captain, he's going to need something else other than that shield. The shield was just one piece of Cap's arsenal. Right. He's going to need some enhancements to fight the battles that are to come.
So it is my personal theorization, my own theory, not my own theory, but it's a popular theory of one of which I subscribe to, that so in Captain America Civil War, Zemo was searching after these other versions of the Winter Soldier, which have had that same serum, and they discover all of them dead. Maybe not all of them were dead. So this guy could be there. He could simply be brainwashed to the point like Bucky used to be before he went to Wakanda. I think that this show, combined with Black Widow, is establishing what we're calling the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts is basically Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad, is villains trying to clear their rap sheet by doing something for the government that maybe a hero shouldn't be doing. So somebody like Zemo or Bucky, for that matter. Like Bucky's trying, but I think Bucky could be part of the Thunderbolts as well. Thunderbolts named after Thunderbolt Ross, who was the Secretary of State in Civil War, Infinity War. So we don't know that they're establishing the Thunderbolts, but that is a very popular theory. It seems to make a lot of sense, especially when you combine it with Black Widow. So there could be a super soldier serum still out there. It will be better than the Suicide Squad. James Gunn's Suicide Squad, however, later this year, hopefully should be a lot better. But so the super soldier serum could very well still be out there. So I don't hate it. Let's put it that way. Moving on to our last one. Who is the new Captain America? So the new Captain America is played by actor Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell's kid. Most of you may have seen him before. He used to have a big bushy beard. I believe he was on Sons of Anarchy, but in that mask, he looks exactly like Carl Fredricksen, with his big blocky square chin. and it just works too well.
So
So Captain America is John Walker. Sam experiences this very, very. He's upset, but he doesn't seem surprised. This particular Hayward type senator.
Exactly.
This particular Hayward type senator seems to have told Sam something that has turned out not to be true. He uses Sam's own words against him, saying we need a hero for our times. And it just so happens that the hero for our times is not the person that Steve Rogers handpicked, but it's the person that the America First, the government, picked the white man to represent America. Ethan, you're nodding along. How did you experience this?
I think sort of the same way that Sam did. I was just like, oh, wow, this is pretty much what I thought it could be, but it was very strange. And I sort of had, I think Marc put it in the comments, but I had the Harry Potter, Snape scene in my head, like, how dare you stand where he stood? And I just was like, I was angry, but I was also confused. I was like, who the hell is this guy? We haven't seen him. We don't know his name. We don't know anything about this guy. How is he as strong as he should be? It was strange. I was just like, what? It was very weird.
He's very much a political tool and not anything what Steve Rogers was. I do kind of really like the new logo though, with like the star and the Washington Monument and stuff. I think it's kind of cool looking. I don't love the red stripes on the suit though. Marc, John Walker, how did you experience this?
Yeah, I instantly, you just don't like him. And like I said, I saw it right away. He's just trying to earn his Captain America Wilderness Explorer badge. You just got to leave him alone. Poor guy. We don't know. I tried to be relatively unemotional about it. You knew it was going to happen. Like the trailers teased the fact that there was another version of Captain America, so you knew it was going to happen. I'm not going to jump on a hate or you just don't know. It's too early to know and to speculate, but it was a perfect way to wrap up the episode. Yeah,
it's a good cliffhanger. Duane, John Walker.
Well, I think I told you and I told Marc both. Marc didn't have the intestinal fortitude that you did to just kind of take it as, well, we'll see how it is. I was mad. I'll just be honest. My first thought was, I want to pop this guy right in the jaw. I was like, oh my God.
It's a big target.
Yeah, it was plenty big. That was my honest first reaction. And then after I had that reaction, I thought to myself,
oh, hi, Marc.
They succeeded.
Oh, hi, Marc.
Because that's what they wanted. They wanted a reaction.
Yep.
And that's what they got from me right away. I was like, okay, the reaction. I also, after you and I kind of talked a little sidebar, I think yesterday, but same kind of thing. I think he's more of just at this point, he's just a figurehead. He's just a person in a costume for them to look at. This is Captain America. No, it's not. It's a guy in a costume. He bought that at, the Halloween Spirit store or something, So.
They've been wanting the guy that looks the part since Captain America, the First Avenger, in Hodge, but Steve Rogers was the right choice. And we referenced Dr. Erskine earlier, and because a good man knows compassion and he knows what strength really means because he was weak, just everything like that. But now they've got what they want, and it's not going to be – he's not Mephisto. Everybody needs to stop. David says, I think he's going to lose an actual public fight to some flag smashers, and the public is going to realize he's a chump. That's possible. Now, we've seen – the only thing we've seen of John Walker, even in promotional footage, is him out with that marching band at halftime of a football game of some sort. So it does seem like they're going to be trying to appease – even the quote unquote other side of this entire argument, because most of the people in that crowd on that field are African American. So I think they're going to be really trying to step out there. But if you're not comfortable having the race discussion, it's going to be a big part of it. And it's a hero for our times. And Sam Wilson should have been that. And I think Sam was a little bit too trusting. And I watching his sister watch him watch that was really, really interesting because she knew exactly how it was going to go, and just him wringing his hands together. I'm very, very excited because Bucky's going to lose it. Like Bucky knows whose shield that's supposed to be, and Bucky is not near as emotionally stable as Sam. So I think Bucky's going to lose it. So I'm very, very excited to see where this show goes next. In the comic books, John Walker plays a character named U.S. Agent. They put out a bunch of promotional hashtags, all out there with emojis that come with them. U.S. Agent is not one of them. So I don't know if they're going to be going U.S. Agent. I think they are going to refer to him as Captain America until he no longer is. I don't know if Wyatt Russell has a future in the MCU. I like the guy. Like, I think it'd be really cool to subvert expectations a little bit and make him a fairly quote unquote likable character. I don't know how they could possibly do it. I don't think that's what they are doing, but it'd be very, very interesting if we get a live action up. Yeah. But gentlemen, I'm going to go around the box here. Any final thoughts you have on this show? Anything you're excited to see? We'll start with Duane.
Real quick, I'm just excited to kind of see where it goes. I think, like we mentioned, I think we're total package. I think we're going to get eventually Sam back as Captain America and hopefully Torres as the new Falcon. But I'm just kind of going to sit back and enjoy it, be along for the ride. I'm excited for it. Yep. Love it.
Ethan, how about you?
Yeah, I got to think that there's a moment where we get a break-in scene to the Smithsonian. Someone's getting that shield back, and I'll be interested to see who gets it. And I'm also just really excited to sort of see the dynamic between this new Captain America and then Sam, because I think Sam is the one that we want. And I sort of have visions of Ocarina of Time where Link faced off with Link. And if that becomes a battle that we see, I'll be really excited for that.
Marc said, did anybody else enjoy the show more than WandaVision because you learned not to overanalyze? Give me a couple weeks. Marc, any last thoughts?
This brings me one step closer to the Emily Van Camp and Chris Pratt reunion. Everwood forever.
I don't think Chris Pratt's going to show up in this show.
Yeah, I know. It's just, honestly, that comment's just kind of, it's a joke to say. I'm not going to over speculate. I'm not going to overanalyze. I think the style of the show lends itself very much to that. I'm just going to enjoy the action sequences. I love the character development. I love the cast. I'm a huge fan of Emily Van Camp. I can't wait to see Baron Zemo back at work. And I'm really excited to see some old faces like Don Cheadle coming back. And I'm in. Like I was in for, like I said, I was in right away from the first action sequence, and you've got me hooked. MCU's got me hooked.
Absolutely.
We haven't even seen Bucky and Sam on the screen at the same time yet. And this show is called The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So we've seen promotional footage of them, even scenes that they've released of them talking about the big three aliens. I can't remember what the big three are, but there's some funny lines that are going to be coming from there, including Bucky talking about how he read The Hobbit when it came out in 1937. Just playing up Bucky being the old man is really, really exciting to me.
That's cool.
But overall, gentlemen, I love this show. It's completely different than WandaVision. Marvel's got another one that's going to get me hooked at 3 a.m. Friday mornings, and I can't wait. I don't know how we end a Falcon and Winter Soldier one, but Earth's Mightiest Weirdos wrapping up their first one.
I would say Excelsior. Excelsior.
Yeah, just Excelsior works. Everybody have a good day. Thanks for joining us.